Hi, everybody. This is for effective speech. I'm going to put together chapter 7 and chapters 10. One, chapter 7 actually focuses on concluding your speech and beginning your speech, and the other is chapter 10, which is about visual aids. So I'll reference the slides as I go. I'm going to start with chapter 7. On the fourth slide in chapter 7, it talks about um, all all of the following are effective attention getters except for, and it would be A, random jokes, obviously. um, Even though I like humor, it shouldn't be random. It definitely should be planned. Um, you definitely can use quotations for an attention getter or really for a wow statement. You could use facts and statistics for either one, which is introduction, conclusion, attention getters in your introduction, the wow statements in your conclusion, and then displays of talent. So you could cite a poem, sing a song. I've had people do, you could tap dance, you could do anything your little heart desires if it's a way to, well, if it's appropriate, one, and then if it's a way to keep attention, it's relevant to the speech, and that also you are justifying kind of the relevance of it and that it would leave a wow or give attention to the audience. So you can talk to me about those things, whatever you're wanting to think about. Um, Again, through the discussion board, you can ask me anything at any time. You could email me, or you can definitely make a Zoom meeting with me face to face. So it says, "What's your introduction do?" on slide 5, and it talks on slide 6 about hooking them, using anecdotes, asking questions to capture an audience's attention. So if you were going to do a speech on um, in a demonstration of how to play a guitar, how to play a piano, you could ask the class, do you know who Bach or Mozart is? Do you know who Eddie Van Halen is? Do you know who, I'm trying to think of a other famous guitar player, Robert Plant, any of those guys in your time frame? I don't know. I'm an old band girl from the 70s, 80s, so I don't know. But you would ask a question to your audience to try to capture what's just to say, is there something that you know how to do, or do you know this person, or what would you think if this happened or that happened, or picture yourself. I've had people in class say, close your eyes and picture yourself in this scenario. What would you do? And then open your eyes, and it kind of gives the audience a way to really focus on the speech that's happening. So the introduction should definitely capture your audience attention, and that's why you have the attention getter. It also should build your credibility, and you want to do that early. And a lot of the things that happens in introduction is that the people say, "Hi, my name is Renee Post," and then they say, "I'm going to be speaking about this." Possibly they'll say something maybe to gain a little bit of attention, and then they jump right in to the main points of their speech. That is not what I want you to do here. I want you to follow the 4 parts of the introduction: attention getter, relevance, credibility, and then the preview of your speech. And so the first step is attention getter, which we just talked about. Sorry, I'm outside and the wind's blowing. The second part is relevance. In these slides, it talks about credibility. I'll get to relevance in a minute. But the credibility is, if you establish it early, then you're telling people that you know what you're talking about, or you researched what you were talking about to let them know a little bit more. You're demonstrating knowledge on your topic, you're pointing out the topic and what the audience may have in common, which could help with, I'm sorry, which could help with the wind just busted up in here, which could help with your credibility and also your relevance. And then it also shows that you're being sincere and that you are focused on really sharing truthful, evidence-based information with your audience. I'm gonna take myself off of this little platform and see if that helps a little bit with the wind. There we go. Sorry about that. So think about that with your credibility. Think about that with your attention getter. And then with relevance, demonstrate audience relevance. And that's on slide 8. Show your audience that they have something to gain from hearing your speech. So I give an example of my informative speech example to you is Michael Jordan. I told you I liked him. People may not care a hoot about Michael Jordan. They don't even care about basketball. But what could I find in Michael Jordan's life that would maybe be relevant to the audience, that would capture their attention and maybe make them realize that he's just a human being too? So, one thing that comes to mind, and I don't know if you guys are watching this right now, The Last Dance is the documentary on his career, and and I knew all this about him anyway, but that his father was tragically killed in a robbery of his car, and Michael lost his father at a pretty young age, and so I mean he had developed all of his career and everything, but I mean he still was at his prime, and his father went to his untimely death. And so there could be something like Michael Jordan may be the superstar in basketball, but he is a human being and he has a father. He lost his father. So even though he may have a very rich life in a lot of ways, not just financially, but in everything else that he's done, he did lose his father to a really horrible crime, one that didn't have to happen. And so that could be a relevant piece. Relevance could be too that we all are college students in the audience. And I've been a college student for a long, long time, bachelor's, master's, and now I have my doctorate. And so, education or something that you're going to gain from this as a learner, a lifelong learner, could be something that would just pique people's interest to want to listen. Can you measure whether or not it's relevant? Can I measure? No, but at least that you try to gain some common ground with your audience is what I'm looking for in your speech. It shows the audience that you care and that you're not just speaking about something that you want to talk about, but something that you want to talk about and share with the students in the class. So, when you're introducing the topic and the preview of the speech, I talked a little bit about this in chapters 1, 2, and 3, I think, or 1, 2, and 4. Introduce the topic and preview a speech. Today, I want to help you see that doing laundry doesn't have to be stressful or expensive. And I talked about saying, I'm going to tell you in 3 steps how you could do that, or I'm going to review how much money you'll save if you do it, you know, with this detergent, how much time you'll save if you do it early in the morning, and whatever the third point would be possibly. So your topic and your preview of speech, that's a good example of how to get into what you're going to talk about and then list the main points so the audience knows what they're listening for in the main points that you're going to speak about. What are effective tension getters? So I'm on slide 11. Shock value, facts and statistics. For shock value, it can definitely gain your audience's attention. It's most effective if your audience doesn't know them. And it works well if you ask, you know, questions, did you know? You know, rhetorical questions. So this one piece of an example on here on slide 11 in chapter 7. What is the number one killer and a major cause of disability of women in America? Breast cancer, lung cancer, car accidents. According to the CDC and Oprah.com, that's informally citing your sources. In the past 12 months, more women, nearly 449,000, were killed by cardiovascular disease than by any other cause. In fact, these women will die from cardiovascular disease than from the next 6 causes combined. That's a wow. That's a whoa, I better pay attention to this speech. I'm a woman. I'm in my whatever area of my life that I should worry about it, or I'm under a lot of stress, whatever. It can be an attention getter to say, well, everybody has a heart. Everybody may not be taking care of it as best that they can. This is definitely focused on women, but a lot of the facts and figures with statistics are probably just as high or higher in men. And so you move on. So that's a good attention getter. Quotations are great. They can be from real life or fictional sources. So if there's a literary piece that you love that is fiction, you could talk about it and you could use it as a piece. One of the essays I always loved out of the book that I read for my thesis in my senior year of high school was The Catcher in the Rye. I really did feel for Holden, and a lot of the things that he said were so realistic to me. And you could pull a quote from that book and talk about it. Use a word-for-word quote or phrase, and succinct quotes work best. So don't pick a quote that's going to be super long that nobody's going to want to listen to. If it's 5, 7 sentences, it's too long. If you have a quote that's a sentence or two, that's great. And it's okay in a speech that if you do pick a quote like that, that you are reading it word for word. And this is the only time in your speech I would allow you to read it word for word. Another really great instance of this is that you could, and if we were in the class and you had a PowerPoint of this or some type of slide, and you talked about wanting an audience member to get involved, which could be an attention getter, you could ask them to read the quote, right? So that's a really good way of using quotes as attention getters, but also getting your audience involved. I've had students do all sorts of things in class. I'm outside, and I'm sorry I'm picking at myself, but I just pulled a spider off my neck. So I'm trying to enjoy the outdoors, but it's a little scary right now with I don't know what's coming from everywhere around me. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so you can also use stories or narratives, illustrations, or some type of anecdote that you'd want to. That slide 13. You can definitely tell a story. Everybody loves stories. If you definitely personalize it, you kind of drop down that barrier between you and the audience, and you share something funny, emotional, educational, whatever it is. So it helps your audience identify with you, the speaker, you with your topic, and then it does kind of break the barrier between the audience and the speaker. One of the things in theater that I've learned throughout my 25 years of doing it is that there is considered like a fourth wall on stage, and a lot of the times it's the space between the audience and the speaker, or the audience and the actors. And in that way, when you personalize a speech, you make eye contact with people and you do things like that, you are breaking the fourth wall. And so it's making a connection between you and your audience that you wouldn't normally do. You can also use humor, but it has to be planned out. You need to know your audience and the topic or occasion so it's appropriate. You're not making fun of anybody or making fun of a group of people. You're not demeaning anyone. It's something that you could talk about a funny situation you were in and how you handled it, whatever it is. But humor's got to be in good taste and well planned out if you're going to use it in your introduction or your conclusion. 2 types of questions: response evoking or rhetorical. So it helps direct your attention to the topic. So you could ask, what do you think if this happens? Or a rhetorical question that nobody's really going to answer, but that you'll get people to focus on what you're doing. So references to historical or recent events. When might this type of attention getter be especially relevant or necessary? So if I use COVID-19 as an example again, you would definitely, if there was something that was said by one of our leaders, you could use that quote and definitely read it because you want it to be correct when you present it. And that would be relevant and necessary to put into your speech because it's something everybody's living through every day. With slide 17, it talks about references to self, occasion, or audience. So if you do something like this, it helps set the tone for your speech. It helps you relate to the audience as the speaker. It shows that you wrote the speech for the specific purpose. So, you can say, hey guys, I know we're all college students and that you may not really care about this, but when I did a lot of research, it actually is something that we should pay attention to because the effects of global warming are going to affect, our lives as we get older and our families' lives, something like that. So it does bring a more personal note to it. And if you provide references, and it shows that you care again, and there's that who cares test with relevance. It shows that you did your homework, you prepared. You're not improvising and looking like a fool, because I've had some people do that. And you definitely are connecting with your audience emotionally if you're picking something that is attention getting, or like that shock statistic that we kind of talked about. It does talk about displays of talent. You're going to get into that in your demonstration speech. So I'm going to skip that for right now, but that's something that you'll show when we get to the second speech for the class. So the organizing the introduction, again, this is a repeat from the first chapter or the second chapter. Attention getter is first, relevance to audience, credibility material, and then preview your main points. That's the first four things that you're going to talk about and begin within your speech in the introduction. And when you look at the format for the outline, you'll see that. What do you do for your conclusion? So you want to signal the ending. You could do a voice change, you could slow down, you transition into, in conclusion, I'm going to sum up what I talked about. You could have a physical change. If you moved from behind the podium in front of the audience and came back, you could conclude behind the podium again. You really do have to kind of think about it. Of course, you're home and you could be in your kitchen, your bedroom, your living room, whatever. The physical change may not be relevant right now, but you can use some type of language signal or a vocal change to tell the audience that you're almost done. The summary is the first part of your conclusion, and I'll go over that. So on slide 24, it gives a final chance for your audience to remember what you talked about. It effectively and concisely restates all the speech's points that you made. It's just like when you write. And then you want to elicit a response, which I always ask you to do. I know you're going to be talking to a recorder, a camera recorder, but I want you to say, are there any questions? If you were in a live presentation and we were in class, I always try to ask a student a question. This is sometimes the best speaking that they do because they're done their speech, the anxiety's kind of gone, and then they're like, okay, now I can just have a conversation. But what you should think about for your next speech is that you just are having a conversation with the audience. This is two-way communication, not one. We're trying to have a relationship with the audience. And that if you put something out there personal or something that was really informative, you're going to have questions. Having raised hands, people that want to ask you questions, is really a good sign that your speech was effective because they paid attention and they want to know more. The final impact is that your wow statement. And wow turned upside down is mom, by the way. Just wanted to tell you that. And so you want to compel the audience to clap, obviously, which we will clap. If you were in my classroom, we would be clapping. We clap a lot and cheer. And then to make your speech truly memorable, you don't want to just put a wow out there, but it's not really a wow. You want to really make it a wow statement. You want to have a moment with the audience. So whether, again, it's a quote, it's a lyric, it's something that you tell a story about to sum up whatever happened in your life. If it's a very short clip of a video that kind of says something that maybe you aren't able to say, whatever you feel like would let the conclusion really make the audience think about what you said at the end and leave a good impression is what you want to do. I always say the introduction of a speech and the conclusion of a speech are like the two hands of a hug. Can't hug right now, unfortunately, very much, but that your introduction kind of opens up the relationship. You have a conversation and you speak about things based on credibility and relevance. And at the end, you're kind of closing in on that hug because you've established a relationship and you've shared the information that you need to share with your audience. And that was slide 26. A wow statement, just like your introduction, on slide 28. Quotations. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. You can Google all different types of quotes. You already know that. Go in there, find one that's relevant, rock on and use it appropriately. That's a good way to end your speech. Again, you can use stories. You could use a visual, use your slides in a way. I've had students talk about texting and driving. I've had students talk about how they've lost loved ones because of it. And their story is either really upsetting at the end because they lost a loved one, or it's really inspiring because the person that wound up being injured in an accident or something like that came to have, back to a better life and is able to function and do what they need to do. So stories do really tell a lot to the audience, and it is a good way to sum your speech up in the conclusion. Humor, again, great, love humor, but I want it to be planned, appropriate, I want it to be relevant, and I want it to be useful to help the audience relax, but it also to be tasteful. And I'm trying to look at any other slides to see if there's anything else I want you to do. How you organize a conclusion, the three parts of it is summary statement, audience response, and wow. You can flip the audience response and wow order for me if you justify it. On your slide 35 in chapter 7, it talks about the conclusion being 5% of your speech. It really doesn't have to be that long. The meat and potatoes of your speech is the main points. Your introduction should be a little bit longer than your conclusion because you're trying to make a case of why people should listen and why they should care, and the research that you did so they should listen and care. Your conclusion is the less percentage of the 100% that you need to do for your speech. This part of your speech should have a wow statement. It is the conclusion. That's where the wow statement should be. That's slide 36. And that's it for chapter 7. So I'm going to go into chapter 10 and start on slide 5. It's what can presentation aids do for your speech. So the biggest thing I want to talk about is that the slides are not what I care about in the speech, it's you. I want you to be the main focus of the speech. You can try to hide behind slides and dance around that, your slides look fabulous, and fabulous slides are wonderful, but it really is about you. So the slide should support what you're talking about. It is not paragraphs of information slapped on a slide so everybody can read it. Again, this is not effective reading, it's effective speech. So I need you to present. And a lot of people have seen in classes, in lectures, in all sorts of things at work that people slap up all their notes and that's considered a presentation. That is incorrect because you could take the slides, read them, and figure out what you need to figure out. The slides that I'm presenting to you today, I'm going over bulleted items, but I'm giving you a lot of depth and breadth into the information and the content of it. And that's what you should do for me when you're presenting your speeches for this class. So presentation aids, and I know this is a question on your quiz, one of your quizzes. So slide 6 in chapter 10, pay attention. They can reinforce understanding and promote clarity. They can grab attention and maintain interest, assist with retention, so it helps people remember, improves credibility, helps you cross a cultural divide, it conveys emotion, and you maintain oh my goodness, I can't say the word. You maintain like an impromptu delivery, basically, that you are able to not read the slides, is what I just said, but actually talk off the bullet points and move forward. So reinforcing understanding and promoting clarity. Obviously, if you have bullet points, again, your outlines are keyword, not full sentences. So if that's what I've asked you to do, your keyword should only be on your slides. And so in this case, looking at this slide 6, it only is a few words for each bullet point. That's what I'm looking for. Maybe a graphic and a title. And I want you to elaborate on each of those things. Grabs the audience's attention and keeps their interest. Absolutely. It talks a lot in here about the chapter that I'm not going to go over completely because all of your slide presentational aids that you have, like all the slides that software that you have access to, it all does everything for you. Back in my day, we didn't have a slide software that would tell you what size the title should be, what size the inside of the content should be. We had to figure it out for ourselves. So I don't need to go into how to format the slide, but you should have it, spell check it, make sure things that are capitalized or italicized or the punctuation is correct, proofread all your stuff like you would do a paper. If you don't do something like that and somebody sees a problem on your slide or a typo or something, what does that normally do? It normally makes them look less credible because everybody spell checks most of the time, something's missed. But if you pop it up on a slide for thousands of people to see and it's wrong, that's not the best that's not the best way to kind of introduce yourself to your audience. So you want to make sure that those typos are free and clear from your slides. It can convey emotion because just like everybody says, and you know, that pictures, music, something like that conveys emotion that maybe nothing that anybody could ever say would. So you can use a picture or lyrics from a song or a quote or something to help you do what you need to do on your slides. This talks about a lot of different slide elements that you could use. Actual items, you may use that for your demonstration speech. Could be a person, an animal, an object. It talks about advantages and disadvantages. If you use a scale or something like that, it's not necessarily going to represent a full blown on, you know, model of what you're going to do. Most of the time in this class, you're going to be using slides to share information. The only place that you would maybe use an actual item are your first two speeches. I'm not going to spoil the surprise of your first speech. The second speech with your demonstration, sure, if you know how to play piano or a keyboard and you have that in your home and you want to show us how to play certain notes or play a song, by all means. And so you have that type of stuff. The demonstration speech may be a lot of fun for you because you aren't limited, because some of the things that you couldn't bring in the classroom, you actually could do because you're home. So that's actually a positive for this. Two-dimensional representations of things, places, concepts, people, it's pictures, right? It's not a model. In a way, it's great because you can bring that picture in and people can see it. On this slide 10. It shows the hatching of a snake. What would be even better would be a video that you could show. Most of the time, in a lot of the things that we see as part of these slides, it's links to YouTube videos. But please beware and cautious that the YouTube video is not too long. I usually say no more than 90 seconds in any speech that you're doing, because if you have an 8-minute speech and you do a 2-minute video, it's a quarter of your speech. I don't want to watch somebody else speak. I want to watch you. So, and hear what you have to say. So 90 seconds is the longest I really want you to do for a YouTube video if you use one. You can definitely use drawings. Oh, if I could just tell you right now, there's a whole family of bunnies that just ran across my yard. My dog is trying to get them, and I'm trying to make her stay inside. And I think they know that she's inside because they just scurried across my yard. Okay. Again, I digress, but we're gonna hopefully they'll be safe. Okay. So drawings are something that you could use if you're going to use something to show that you're an artist in your demonstration speech. A drawing would be appropriate. If you're a tattoo designer, tattoo artist, you may have something on your arm that you want to show, or something, an appropriate place on your body that you could share with us. That would show your art skill as well as your tattoo experience. So, and then talk about that tattoo. It really is limitless. You just have to make sure it's appropriate and that there's a good reason for using that kind of drawing. Charts and tables are important. This is slide 12. Flow charts, organizational charts help to explain how kind of workflow goes. It helps to summarize complex information. So this shows your textbook and the tabs that it has in your textbook to then break down what's going to be in what chapter. You're very aware of table of contents, things like that, to show you where to go. So charts and tables can be. Graphs and line graphs and bar graphs are important. You just have to be careful of what you're talking about. In this COVID, land right now, you're seeing a lot of bar graphs and line graphs to show increase or decrease of things that are happening out there because of the virus. So most of the time, if you have a line graph or a bar graph that you want to use, you could Google something of the idea of it, and you could probably find one online that you could use for your topic. You do not have to go and make a bar graph or a line graph to be able to put it in your speech. If you do use something that's online, you have to absolutely reference it and put the citation in so that person or people get the credit for it. Pictographs or pie graphs. A lot of the times with pie graphs, you're talking about pieces of a pie that are percentage equal 100. We know that. When you talk about money, things like that, This is an example of greenhouse admissions. It shows the breakdown of it. And the pictographs, these are cool. Speaking of the 2020 census, this talks about diversity in the U.S. population. So that is something that is a good way to use a little icon, a little image, and then you don't have an issue with just having to use a line or color or anything like that. So a pictograph is pretty cool. And I like the one that is used on slide 14 as an example because it's little tiny people in different colors that are green. I think it's like a peach or a pink and a light blue, and it represents the years, and it also represents the ethnicity of the people. And it's a good way to show the difference in those populations. You can use media, absolutely. You guys are like the experts out there of it. So you can include footage, movies, recordings, music, anything else. You can enhance the speech. Again, I just don't want it to be more than 25% of what you do on your speech because this is about you, not about that. Multimedia is, again, most of the time for you guys is going to be sound, video, graphics, or all of those things in one. You may use an item and then during your speech on a slideshow a photograph, and then at the end use a video. So you may be combining all that, and that's what multimedia is, which you know. How do you determine what presentation aids you use? You have to figure out what the purpose is. Are they going to assist you? Are they going to support you? Are they going to facilitate? So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's see. It says on slide 20, Atticus would like to give a presentation about his pet snake. Which presentation type would be best for his speech? We don't want the actual item. We do not want that, even though snakes are lovely. I don't want that in class, and I don't think that's what you should do. A drawing would be okay, but if he has a pet snake, why not take a picture, right? A chart is not going to work. So obviously, photograph is the answer. So you got to think that out. Factors to consider on how you're going to display things. Your home, it's one-on-one with the camera. So in that situation, you know what to do. And you may have people in your family that you need to you need to include if you can do that, which I talked about in the opening Start Here folder on Blackboard. If you can't find audience members, it's not a big deal. I'm not saying to bring anybody in from the outside. It's just family members if they could sit and watch you. Because the one thing that is kind of a negative for the speech classes this summer is that we have to do them online. Again, this was supposed to be hybrid, so you were going to present your speeches in front of the class, which I think is such a good tool and skill to learn, and then get my feedback and then get better every time. In this case, we can't do that, so I'm asking you to try to have people in the audience. And my example kind of is you're sitting here, you're ready to do your speech. Maybe you turn the camera and you show me who's in the room. And then in your speeches, I definitely want to see your slides. So there's one really cool presentation aid called Loom that shows you in the corner of the frame of the slide presentation, and so I can see you and also see your slides at the same time. The other thing is you just turn your computer around, and your screen of your computer faces the audience, and you face the audience, and you have somebody hold the camera, your phone camera or whatever, to record you. So I'll hopefully be able to load a speech or two as an example so you can see what other students have done in terms of like in the COVID world right now. But that's what I'm looking for. But I definitely want to see your slides as you present your speeches in your third and fourth speech, when you definitely have slides that you have to show. Methods for presenting. Is it a good idea on slide 23, it asks to hand out a brochure at the start of your speech to help the audience know what you're talking about? The answer is no. And as a teacher, I learned this super early, that you don't want to, and as a presenter, because I've been paid to present all over the country, and it's the same, doesn't matter, classroom or not. You want to give the material out to a class or to a group of people that you're presenting to, when you're going to talk about it, because it's like giving somebody something, they're going to look through it. That's going to be noise. They're not going to listen to what you're talking about. Then they're going to be antsy of when you're going to reference it, and then it's going to go downhill from there. So you have to use it as a way, and that's really the question, to facilitate a conversation that you're going to have, a writing prompt, whatever it's going to be. It's something that you could use as a wow, and somebody takes away with the brochure if you were in the classroom. Notes are kind of the same idea in class, that you take your own notes, but the PowerPoint slides or outlines or whatever you get, right? And you have all that. So you absolutely should not be handing that stuff out or providing it online until you're going to talk about it, because it just becomes distraction and noise. It talks about chalkboards and whiteboards. They're fine to use. My handwriting stinks, so I would always use slides. But in cases of the classroom, if I'm trying to gather information or review something very quickly, I will definitely use the chalkboard or the whiteboard that I have in the classroom. But I also supplement it with other things, which is what this slide says. So you would get slides from me, an outline, the PowerPoint, possibly a video or an audio recording, along with what I went over in class. I wouldn't just rely on that. We have better technology out there to just use the whiteboards and chalkboards. Posters, don't need for this class. In some instances, they could help, but most of the time, it's not really the most effective way. Unless you have a really small group of people, like in this picture, and you know that he's got 4 or 5 audience members that can see it. But even then, why wouldn't you use a computer or a projection and a projection screen and a projector to show it? Doesn't make any sense. So posters, handouts are great, but only put the handouts out if you're going to use them and you're going to talk about them. Flip charts are good, usually with an easel and with some type of writing utensil, obviously, usually a marker, to brainstorm after a lecture or something like that. So in a lot of the things I've either presented or taught, especially in my doctoral stuff that I did in class, we would facilitate these presentations, and then we would have a flip chart to brainstorm ideas for something that we had to come up with as a group. So flip charts aren't completely out. It's not something that you have to use for this class, but it's things of why you would use certain presentational aids. And of course, advanced technology. I want you to use slide programs. I want you to use videos. I want you to use audio recordings, whatever you would need. The biggest thing is when you go out to make the big bucks and you're going to present, you have to make sure you have plan A, B, and C. So I've been out a lot in my life to present at all different places, and you have to have a hard copy of everything that you're going to use. You have to have a flash drive or whatever. You have to have something on the cloud, and we didn't have a cloud back then when I was doing those things. And then you also need to have it backed up in your email. So if you were in class with me and your hard drive or your flash drive didn't work, I wouldn't necessarily accept that as an excuse, because I'd say, well, the backup should have been that you had it in your email. Vice versa, email doesn't work, where's your backup, right? Or go get it in the cloud and let's look at it, you know. So you have to be plan A, B, and C. I've been in situations where I would get paid a lot of money to present to people about what I know, and first my email I couldn't get on to get my stuff. My flash drive, when I put it in the USB in the computer, said that it wasn't reading it. So I had copies of everything. Is it how I wanted to do it? Nope. But they had the slides, they had me, and then they had the handouts that I gave afterwards. So what I wound up doing in that situation was when I got home from my trip, I sent all the slides and everything else that I could to support them. I didn't have it during the thing. But you have to have plan A, B, and C in that situation. Some of the good design principles, your slides already do this for you. Your software tells you. Unity, pattern, balance, emphasis, rhythm. You can't put 2 pounds of you know what in a 1 pound situation. So you've got to make sure that you have less is more on a slide. A few bullet points, maybe an image, and a great title. Done. It isn't about you, it's about the presentational aid. Okay? Reading it is not an option. Bulleted points or phrases is what I want. I do not want paragraphs because then you're going to read it. Look at this. This is my favorite slide in this whole class. Look at this right here. It's slide 31 in chapter 10. And this is probably not something that you may do fully, but I'm going to recommend that you do. 1 to 2 hours to research and collect information about what you're going to talk about. 1 hour to evaluate what your audience should hear and what it needs. 2+ hours to create presentational aids. And 1 hour to rehearse with aids. Now, do I believe that you're going to take all that time? Let's add that up. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 hours. You have 5 weeks to do 4 speeches in this class. In the other class, it's 7 weeks to do 4 speeches, in summer 2. In your fall class, it's 15 weeks. What do we do? So I don't think it's going to take you that long to put presentational aids together because you're very fast at that. You know what you're doing. The evaluation of your audience, you know it's college audience, so I wouldn't necessarily think that it's going to take you an hour. Collecting information and putting your outline together, maybe an hour. You definitely should rehearse. I think that's where all your time should go. I'm not sure an hour is really enough. I think you have to be super comfortable because with comfort comes confidence, and with confidence comes usually a pretty great grade because you kicked Fanny when you presented and you did everything I asked you to do. Presentational software, there is so much. So PowerPoint is the oldest. It's not the best. It's not the fanciest, but you can use it. If that's what you have access to and it's something that you're comfortable with, done. Check it off. That's what you're using. You have Haiku Deck. You have Loom that I just talked about. I'll give you links to this stuff. You have Prezi. You have Google Slides, and I know that's probably what I'll see a lot of, which is great. But Google Slides gives you a way to make slides very easily. They look professional, and it's all good. So use what you have. Do not go out and buy anything. And if I said Prezi, I'm not sure if I did. Prezi's really cool. Prezi's like a left-brained software that I learned to use in my doctoral classes. It's a lot of fun, and it kind of flows differently. PowerPoint's very linear, but Prezi kind of flows a little bit differently, and I dug it a lot. So if you want to look into something and learn it, all of those things are free that I talked about. I don't know if PowerPoint would be unless you have Microsoft, but Google Slides is free inside of your Google email, student email, so rock it out. But Prezi's free up to a certain point, and then if you want to get super fancy, you have to pay for it, but you don't need to for this class. So go check it out if you want to do something. Loom is great too. Go check that out. That's free. Oh, and the last slide on here for chapter 10, and I swear I'm done talking for a while, is that proofread, preview, and practice. So you got to proofread what you put out there as slides, right? You got to preview every slide and talk it through. Then you got to practice. So you may sit here like I am, look at your slides, put them together, right? Preview it, click through your slides, talk it out, talk it out. You may add, you may subtract to what you're talking about, that your guide is your outline, and then you put those on the slides. And then, and along with, I'm going to teach you how to cite slides, pictures, and then informally cite it when you speak. Lastly, it would practice, and that's the thing that I absolutely cannot do for you. You got to practice. So a checklist here on slide 35, check the equipment, know when you're going to display your slides, so when you're going to click the space bar to move forward. The touch, turn, and talk method, if we were in class, we'd talk about that you would maybe reference the slide, turn, not look at the projector, turn background to your people and your audience and talk to them. Again, it's talking, it's discussion, it is not talking at, it's talking with, okay? And then always prepare a backup plan, again, plan A, B, and C. And I can't tell you how much my preparation and practice has always helped me do well in all my presentations for the 25, 30 years I've been doing it. And I'll leave you with this. I was asked to speak by the faculty for my doctoral presentation. I was asked to put a speech together, and then the chair of my department went through it. She didn't change much. She just asked me to make it a little more personal and put some jokes in there because she knows my humor, and she always got a kick out of things I would say. because I thought it was really, really formal, I didn't put it in there at first. And then she's like, just be you up there. So, one of the things I can say to you is that you bring a lot to the table just being you. So, you should bring those pieces of your personality and put it out there, because the more genuine you are in your presentations, the more people are going to remember what you said and remember you. So, I leave you with that. I'm done talking for a while. This was chapter 7 and 10, and I will see you online. Bye.